ask anybody's question but yours. You're an idiot and really a disloyal person.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Disloyal Idiots podcast here on the Fans First Sports Network. Christian Guzman here alongside Steve Haller and Andy Pregler. And while we would like to talk about Syracuse football, events this past week have necessitated that we start this week with unfortunate news on many sides of Syracuse. As you can see, if you're watching our live stream right now, Steve Haller is holding up a very, very cool card of Lawrence Moten, and he is unfortunately one of two Syracuse athletes that have passed away this past week, in Lawrence Moten and Arthur Jones on the football side. So it's been a very, very tough year for Syracuse in general in terms of great athletes who have unfortunately passed away, to go along with Tiana Mangakahia on the women's basketball side as well. And it would be remiss if we didn't spend enough time talking about both Lawrence Moten and Arthur Jones to their effects on not just their individual programs, but on the Syracuse community as a whole.
Lawrence Moten single-handedly was the reason every single high schooler in Central New York wore high socks for the entirety of the 90s, among many other things, including being the Big East all-time leading scorer and just being a general, all-around good guy. In the Steve is old category, I'm definitely the only of the three of us to have actually watched him. I still remember, when he got drafted by the Vancouver Grizzlies with Bryant Big Country Reeves back in the day. And because his time at Syracuse was just before I kind of started paying attention more and more. He graduated in, I think, 95 and was, 95 draft, if I'm remembering right. Let me look at the back of the card because it's sitting right here. So, 95. My brain still works on occasion. But it's just a crazy, crazy shame to see, he was 52. What he's, given back to the program, what he's given back to basketball in general just can't be understated.
The big thing about Moten, what I see, and obviously I didn't see him play in person, but any time he showed up at the Dome, it just felt like so many people were just happy to be in his presence and just happy to see him in general. Like, and he was at the level of, hey guys, Lawrence Moten is at the Dome today.
Yep.
Other alumni may come back, and it might take you a second to realize that they're there, and they maybe not get much attention. But Lawrence Moten was one of those guys where if he was at the Dome, you knew he was at the Dome, and it was a general delight for people to be around him.
Yeah, I both Lawrence Moten and Art Jones, I weirdly have an auto connection with both of them. The first year that I was on the team, they didn't really know what to do with autos during basketball games, and so there was a lot of shuffling around of like where can we put these student athletes that like need to be near the tunnel access, but we can't stick them on the bench or anything like that. So they stuck us in the university comp seats next to Lawrence Moten for an entire season. It was just, as you're waiting to get in the game, you're just sitting next to Lawrence Moten watching a basketball game. And it was like one of the most surreal experiences that I've ever had, was to go through a season just like sitting next to this guy who is very clearly a legend, but in those moments is just the biggest and most positive supporting fan of the world. Like it actually was perfect that you're going to put the auto student athletes next to that guy and that energy that you want to bring every single game. And in the case of Art Jones, I was very, very lucky. My junior year, I was the auto over the summer, and that basically means you're the wedding auto. And I got very, very lucky to do Art Jones's wedding, which was in Syracuse. And if that, again, Steve kind of mentioned it, like these guys and their connections to the area, and the way that they stuck around the area even after they went pro and left Syracuse and could have picked anywhere else in the world to settle down and do what they did. They both chose to stay in Central New York. They both chose to stay around their respective programs. I think that speaks to why these losses this week especially hit so hard, not just how young they are, not just because they were players that we remember seeing and watching at various levels of Syracuse or the pros. It's that these were people who made the choice that a lot of us did, and or at one point in time or for a lifetime, which was coming to Syracuse, falling in love with the area, and then choosing to stay and make a life there. And I think that kind of mentality and kinship is why these two especially feel like there's been a little bit of mourning across the board that we haven't seen for other former athletes, at least in my time covering Syracuse athletics.
Yeah, and Art's I guess in the Steve is old category, he's one of the first that was younger than me. I mean, he passed at 39. He played for the Orange right after I got out of college, or well, I guess during my senior year was his freshman year.
Yeah.
So it's it hits home. He was on the hill when I was up at ESF. So that was kind of it's one of those where life comes at you fast, and I remember on South, seeing him, or that was the era of the Dante Greens and Arinze and like all these mammoth human beings. Like I'm not a small human by any stretch, and I would run into these guys, and it's like they were just larger than life in many facets of the word. So they profoundly had an impact on a lot of people around this area. And Art always came back, between that and, being succeeded by Chandler here too. It was, it's a rough one.
And I mean, along those same lines, like that's why the unfortunate passing of Tiana Mankakahia also hit me,
Right.
Hard as well, because, she was one of the first ones that's younger than me. A lot of her heyday was after I left as an undergraduate,
Right.
after I finished my undergraduate stay at Syracuse, and the impact that she had on the program. Yeah, she went back to Australia to play and live her life there, but the impact that she had on the community, not just on the court but off the court as well, made you know that she was always going to forever be Orange.
Yep.
And just the combination of those three people who are so important to the Syracuse community passing away this year is definitely it definitely makes this year a tough year for Syracuse and the people who care about the athletics here at Syracuse so much.
Yeah, I think that it's always tough but like I think we have to acknowledge these because again, these are larger than life players who obviously shaped so many fans, like us, people who have covered this team. Like they've touched so many lives in so many different ways, and again, to see them gone so soon, so young, it's really sad. And for anybody, I doubt that any of their families are listening to this, but if you are, like, know that we mourn with you. We are with you. Like, part of what makes Syracuse special is this Orange family, this Orange connection that I think we have seen is real. We hear the coaches talk about it, but it's a very real thing just from us being adjacent to it and part of it in our own ways. And so the entire family is hurting this week. We send our thoughts to everybody. And if you have a great Tiana or Lawrence or Arthur story, share them with the people who didn't get to see them play. Share them with the people that might not have that experience. I'll always remember at Art's wedding in Otto dancing around, and the DJ put on Black and Yellow, and Art immediately stands up and says, turn this expletive off, because at the time he was playing for the Ravens and had a giant Baltimore Ravens ice sculpture in the middle of the room, and like he's just like looks at Otto and he's like, you could dance to anything else, not that. I was like, okay, Art, I'm not gonna say no to Art Jones.
Right.
That's incredible.
Meanwhile, you and the suit are sitting there loving life.
I mean, I thought it was an excellent troll move. It turns out the DJ just honestly had no idea, because that's terrible miscalculation there by a DJ. But yeah, one of them. I think honestly that is probably the highest profile celebrity auto appearance that I ever got to do was that wedding. Just the entire Jones family was there, and that was absolutely insane.
Well, unfortunately, rest in peace
Uh,
to Tiana,
yeah,
Lawrence, and Arthur. They will forever be orange, and we will always remember them and for everything they did for Syracuse, both on and off the playing field. We don't often say
exactly.
it's time to eat our vegetables when it comes to football, but it's time to eat our vegetables when it comes to football. And I'm going to start with explaining this to Steve because Andy and I had a look at this pregame. Um, Steve, I want you to know that Ricky Collins' grade on PFF ever since we saw it against Duke has significantly been reduced
Oh yeah.
since then. And so I'm expecting Ricky Collins' grade against SMU to get significantly reduced as well as the week goes on.
Yeah.
But what do you think it is right now?
Against SMU.
Yes.
Yeah.
So caveat: I did not see more than 10 snaps of this game. I had to hit this one via Sirius XM.
And yes, caveat, I also saw 0 snaps of this game due to other obligations.
Mm.
So Andy's the only one
I
who
saw
saw
every
the-
snap of this
yes.
game.
Do you regret seeing every snap of this game?
I was at my local pub, and they had every TV turned on to the Yankees except for one TV in the corner that they put this game on for me for. I honestly don't know who was sadder, the Yankees fans or me.
Okay,
Yes,
Los
'cause
Dos.
I was right at the the stretch where I was able to watch. I was dual screening both of those, and I was like, okay, this is a choice. I made this choice. We're here.
It's not going great for
Mhm.
both teams right now.
Gut. High 60s?
75.4.
Really?
Highest offensive grade on the team.
Hmm.
And yes, since we've talked about Ricky against the Duke game, and Andy wasn't here for that last week, Ricky's PFF grade against Duke has dropped to 61.9, which is probably
Okay.
reasonable for what that was for the Duke game.
Yeah.
And we're expecting this SMU grade to drop as, they continue to analyze it more and more and more.
Yeah. And that's like, last week I came out hard defending Ricky because I saw a lot of what that initial grade was based on. Andy, I think in the Slack you mentioned the for lack of a better description, the scarecrowing, as if the physical characteristics are all there, but for some reason, whatever mental game that he has in practice is not translating in any way to the field during, once the whistle blows. A lot of times with reps and with time, that can get worked out. Sometimes it does not. Like, we've definitely had quarterbacks over the years that have gotten in their own heads to the point where they cannot, do what they need to do. It's to be seen on Ricky, but a lot of my strong convictions last week were based on the fact that with a week he'd be able to sort out a lot of the locking in on guys, a lot of the early rookie type mistakes, just to get the jitters out type thing. Even towards the end of that game, he seemed to settle a little. And coming into this game, I don't know if it was something SMU dialed up, but he was rattled again. And it was after that early. Yeah. Go for it.
No, and I think it's you're so close there, and I think that we're all seeing a lot of pieces kind of fall into place. Like I can imagine that as a guy watching film in Syracuse, looking at Ricky Collins' practice footage, looking at his high school footage, you understand why he was an ESPN top 200 recruit. Like, this was one of the best players coming out of the high school ranks when he was a senior, and the physical tools are there. Like, he has the legs, he has the arm strength that frankly Angeli doesn't have. He also has the ability to throw from multiple different arm angles and throw from multiple different arm angles on the run. Like, he is the physical package. And yet he looked worse in this SMU game than in the Duke game, because the Duke game was every time he made a mistake, it was a catastrophic mistake. Like the fumble that immediately kills the drive, the interceptions, the like it was one mistake per drive, and it would always end up absolutely killing everything that Syracuse tried to do from there. This game, I think he honestly made more mistakes, and part of it was SMU did not capitalize on them, and the other part of it was he was, and I think, Steve, this is to your point from the rattling part of it, there were times where he was clearly making the mistake and then just had a horrible throw that basically negated anything, from anybody from catching it or anybody doing anything with the ball. But like the process of it going is the process of that decision was no, like that is just the wrong process from start to finish. And I think that that's why, and like this was probably, Steve, you were first in the Slack on this one. He got chewed out coming out of the second quarter and into halftime by one of the offensive assistants.
Josh
And I think, and I again, he online is listed as an offensive specialist.
the QC offensive specialist. He's basically, another offensive analyst in that vein.
Yeah, but also one of the things to note, and I think this is like the interesting part, is that you're only allowed to have so many coaches on the sidelines. Typically, analysts are relegated to the press box. The fact that he is on the field means that this is somebody that the coaching staff has a tremendous level of respect and trust and communication responsibility with, because otherwise he'd be up in a box somewhere. So he's definitely a name to watch just in the coaching staff. But the fact that he like immediately went over to Ricky and like continued chewing him out going into the locker room, I think it's painfully obvious to everyone right now. Ricky, there is something going on, either like you're talking about, Steve, where he's doing things in practice and then not translating them into the game environment.
Yeah.
Or this is a situation where they are trying to build the offense in a way to work around these things that they know Ricky does, and he's still finding ways to just make a mistake on every single rep. And I can only imagine how frustrating, again, like, is it, Steve, this is something that I want to talk to you about. We were going back and forth in the Slack conversation, and we can talk about some specific plays here, but it was really consistently that Ricky was always making the wrong read and always under pressure, even when SMU wasn't bringing more rushers than Syracuse had blockers.
Yeah.
And when it happens a couple of times, like that's scheming. That's SMU really understanding what Syracuse is doing and calling up some good plays. When it happens consistently, that is pre-snap line of scrimmage reads between Collins and the offensive line. And I think you hit the nail on the head that this might be on Collins and the offensive line just really not being in any way, shape, or form on the same page.
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know if he's calling protections wrong or, misidentifying mics, and there's a couple things it could be, and I have no idea what it is. But one way or another, it's making it so he and the offensive line are not, they're not playing the same game, or they're playing the same game with one arm tied behind their back. Because whatever and this may not be the case, I don't know, but like you said, there was enough consistency to how blown the pressure was and how quick the pressure came. There were multiple times you just see, linemen open and people coming free. So there's got to be something fundamentally changed there. Beyond that, I mean, when he had I guess that's the thing, is he hearing footsteps because of this happening so much that even when he gets time to throw, he leads Jonte Cook by an extra yard. He airs that one out to Davian Kerr Daryl Gill, and it ends up 5 yards past him. And I'm like, put some air under that ball, and that's 6. And he's got the arm to do it. And I guess, there's a chemistry aspect to this as well. Of, yes, he's been the backup, but there's a difference between going through camp and getting your reps and then getting into the season for 3 weeks and not throwing to those guys consistently. And it's, I don't know. It's just, it's so weird to try and analyze what's going wrong, because especially without having seen the film again, like I said, I might have seen a quarter at most. It's just a weird situation.
So, two things. One, the only offensive linemen that grade below the Mendoza line are Travion Mack and Byron Washington. Mack comes in at a 55.2, Washington a
Really?
53.9. As the others do grade above the Mendoza line, just not as high. Collins actually has a 69.4, third best on the team. And then Ferguson, Weatherspoon, and Cruz all are within a point. Ferguson 61.8, Weatherspoon 60.8, Cruz 60.5. Throw in Nikhil Bertrand 17 snaps at a 65 as well. So, I mean, obviously, like we said, PFF grades are going to change, but initial observations were that the line wasn't as bad. So,
Well,
it's one of those consistently good, occasionally great things that Dino loves to bring up. It felt like there was at least in PFF's mind, there's probably a consistency, but the occasionally bad plays are really, really destroying that line.
Well, and that's the thing. The interior seemed and again, sample size, the interior seemed okay. The tackles seemed like they were, like, I distinctly remember Demetrius Washington on one looking like he opened the barn door. And it's, maybe the plays that aren't catastrophically bad are fine. And maybe, one time it's Washington making a mistake, and one time it's Travion Mack making a mistake, and one time it's Austin Collins making a mistake. Like, there's a couple of different ways and a couple of different things it could be. And until they get in the room and analyze film, I don't know what it is, but there's something that had to have changed from this offensive line actually looking pretty darn solid 2 weeks ago against Clemson, against a significantly better defensive line. And now we're sitting against Duke and SMU with, the exactly what we're seeing. The other thing, Kevin brought it up in the Slack. Every team that we've played has rated as one of the top front seven in the country.
I'm the one who brought up that tweet. But
Was it you? Okay. Kevin responded to my statement on it.
Yes.
But it's like, this can be one of two things. Either we got really unlucky and those defensive lines are all really good, or those defensive lines are all rated really good because they played us.
So for Andy's sake, this was before the SMU game.
Yeah.
Fastest average time to pressure from FBS defensive lines. Number 1, Clemson, 3 seconds. Number 3, Tennessee, 3.04. Number 8, Pitt, 3.12. Duke tied with them, 3.12. UConn, 3.15. So yes, things can be two things.
Yeah, and I think that the interesting thing here with the defensive fronts, I do think Syracuse is not the best at pass protection. And this is bringing me back to a few years ago when we were talking about the old SD, SU cohorts that came in and were teaching everybody how to run block, and then we couldn't pass block to save our lives.
Yep.
I do think that that's like a fair thing. And that also might explain why these offensive linemen with great physicals from big schools might have been available in the transfer portal, based off of just the way that offenses run at some of these highest levels. But the second part is, and this is another thing, Steve, I don't know if you got to see any of these, the chaos in all of this was that we could have gone into the half down 24-9. We could have gone into the half down a lot less, or even at an even game. The issue was the short yardage game that
I heard
really struggled for the second week in a row.
Yeah.
Yep. And the part that really frustrated me, the play calls at some point you keep wondering, like, why are Insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And so after the fourth and short yardage situation where you try to run it and it doesn't do anything, you probably should stop trying to run the ball on fourth and short. But on all of the plays that I was consciously watching, there was a situation where either one, Syracuse won at the line of scrimmage, and Yassine or Ricky made the absolute wrong read on which gap or where to try to get through. Or two, the line gets beat.
Really? That never happens.
It's just, and this is what I mean. These are just mental errors that we did not see last year. And again, when you look at who we lost, the veterans of this team, yes, younger guys are going to make dumb mistakes. It's just infuriating that they don't make these mistakes against Clemson or even against Tennessee, and yet they're making these mistakes on the road against SMU, at home against Duke, at home against UConn, even. And that's the part that's super frustrating here, is because do I think that Syracuse beats SMU even if all these different things go right? Probably not. I think SMU was the better team and probably pulls away from us in the second half. But do I think it's an absolute laugher the way that it was for 3/4 of the game? Absolutely not, because Syracuse can hang with these guys. It's just that there is a consistent poor decision-making process happening by the guys with the balls in their hands, and it's just really frustrating to watch. And I understand why in that situation people are asking, why is Fran trying to run the ball? The answer being, it's the right play call. Everything is working out there the way it is. It's execution. They're just not executing, and if they're not executing, then there's nothing you can really do about it.
Right. You fourth and less than one, you are not putting the ball in the air. You are running, even if you don't run up the middle, run an inside zone and let the running back read it.
I mean, Pete Carroll would say otherwise, but that's besides the point.
What's that?
Pete Carroll would say otherwise, but that's besides the point.
Well, we're not, yeah. Oh, God. Yeah.
It's the thing is that, and Andy brought it up, this is a problem that goes back to the UConn game, where Syracuse beats UConn a lot cleaner if they convert one of those 4th and 2s. And they had 3 of them.
Yeah.
And all of them were inside the red zone. So, and again, you bring up Yassine has running into own guy problem, which, hopefully gets fixed soon. But you got to remember that people were calling for in Joey's head until he made that comeback against UConn.
Yeah,
this is
the thing.
This is Collins' second game. Yes, does it feel different? Yeah, probably. But this is his second game as a starter. He didn't have a full training camp as the starter.
Nope.
He was competing for half of it, and spring ball is not training camp.
No, not in any way, shape, or form.
So,
that's the thing.
You gotta give him time. Do the early returns look good? No. Did the early returns on Angeli look good? No. Look what it developed into.
Right.
You've got a bye week, and I talked about this with Steve last week as well. You've got 2 litmus tests coming up. Pitt and North Carolina. There's your litmus tests.
Yeah.
Your Pitt, you're coming off a bye week.
Yeah, and
UConn looks like UConn. I mean, not UConn. UNC looks like UNC.
Right.
Yeah, I think that the craziest part about this, and I wrote about this on my Substack, is that after the Duke game, the entire purpose was to get to the road game against SMU with 3 wins. That meant either knocking off Clemson or Tennessee, and or winning all of your home games. And Syracuse knocked off Clemson and won 2 out of the 3 of their home games. From here on out, all you have to do is beat Pitt, BC, and UNC at home, win your home games from here on out, and you're going to a bowl, which was something that we said was like in the upper end of positive outcomes for the season based off of the schedule. And the nice thing is that like even though we took advantage of Clemson, Duke ended up being a little bit better than we thought Duke was going to be. Notre Dame is rounding into form very quietly. Like that game is gonna suck, just straight up. That game is really gonna suck. The home games look a lot more doable right now. UNC might be the worst team in the ACC and might be in contention to be the worst team in the Power Five, and we get them at home on Halloween in a big primetime matchup where obviously they can get up for it, but we should get up for it too. Pitt just went to a true freshman quarterback. Obviously, he looked a lot better than Eli Holstein did, but like things are not going great at Pitt right now. Like they are pressing every emergency button that they can press in order to try to salvage this season, and we get them at home. And Boston College
It's battling
has
UNC.
just got the doors blown off them. Yeah, like this is the best possible outcome of the schedule for Syracuse, which is even though we are playing with a backup quarterback, even though there are these mental things going on, we can go into the bye week saying win your home games, and we are going bowling for a second straight year with all of the injuries that this team has already encountered, which we haven't talked about yet. But like we found out right before the SMU game that like one of our best defensive front guys is out for the season now, apparently. Like getting to the postseason in any way, shape, or form will be a positive, and we are in the best possible scenario to go to the postseason right now.
Right. Also, JRS did not look great at the end of that game. So, on top of
so those who didn't necessarily see, it looked like I don't know if you were able to see this one, Steve, but Christian JRS got hurt on a play where somebody rolled up into his knee, went into the tent for a while, came out in the second half on crutches with a multiple wraps above and below his knee area. I'm assuming that they're going to like the camera crew got it. It's not us speculating. It's just us saying what everybody who watched that game in the second half saw. So all 10,000 of us or whoever it was. But yeah, did not look good there at all. I would assume that we're going to the bye week, but I would assume that he's probably out multiple weeks. I do not know if it was the same knee that was giving him problems last season, and if it was, that's not good.
So this is one of the few things that you can say about Syracuse that has been a very, very good positive that Fran has done. And we talked about this a lot in the preseason, that Syracuse has depth. And so, yes, JRS is a great wide receiver. He's an impact player. But you still have Cook, who is looking healthier and healthier as the weeks go on. I would like to see Daryl Gill targeted a bit more and not bomb down and hope for long ball touchdown plays, because Gill is, we saw it under Angeli, Gill's capable of making short to medium yard plays as well. And then you also have Emmanuel Ross, who it feels like Collins has the best connection with on the team outside of Cook. So, like,
go figure, the guy who's been running with the second string has chemistry with the second string receivers.
I mean, well, there is that, but also remember Ross has also been injured for the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks of the season, and only just started getting into the games, I think, for a cameo against Clemson, but obviously playing a lot against Duke.
Yep.
So, yes, yeah. So injury may have maybe even stunted that a little bit, but at the same time, yeah, one of the premier second choice options for Syracuse is now becoming a favorite for the second string quarterback.
Yeah, this is a very strange situation where I said second string wide receiver, but like there's not a ton of drop off there. Like we actually have a lot of depth there, like you said, Christian. It's kind of, I don't know. It's a weird situation. I don't know how to deal with depth at wideout.
I mean, like, from what I read online from one of the tweets, like, I believe it was Jalen Hornsby and Darian Williams started the game. And obviously, like, starting the game and actually, like, playing snaps is a totally different thing. But, yeah, trotted those guys out first.
Fran works in mysterious ways, my friend. So the
Yeah,
other thing I
I
do want
I,
to
I
mention,
think
go for it.
no. I was just gonna say, like, I just think it's one of the things that I thought was interesting in this game was just the rotations in general. Like, we've seen Fran be pretty stubborn with some positions. I don't want to read too much into this, and I didn't see anything really mentioned about this in any of the post game pressers. Fran has been really open that, like, he will tolerate mistakes if there's effort, and I wonder if the rotations was happening because he either wasn't seeing effort or he was seeing repeated simple mistakes over and over again, which again would fit this mental narrative that we're kind of talking about here.
It's, I mean, obviously, having not seen the game, I couldn't tell you if that's what the case is or not in terms of rotation. But it does
Right.
feel like there is a little bit of, how do I want to say this? There are like it's situational rotation, and I'm not sure if there has been much in terms of like, hey, you're not good, or not putting in the effort in this drive, so I'm taking you out. Um, Mainly also because like one of the hidden things is that Syracuse has been relatively penalty clean in the games this year. So like we aren't seeing too many of, hey, you committed dumb penalty, I'm yanking you out and you're gonna learn. Uh, but it feels like there's a lot of situational stuff that happens in the rotation wise, and we're talking specifically offense because everyone defensively nowadays is rotating like a madman. I mean, everyone's doing platoon changes the second a sub is allowed to happen on defense. So defensive substitutions, I don't think you can read too much into. Offensive wise, a lot of it I think is situational, and um, I'm not sure if it's effort wise or not, and maybe it's also just maybe just identifying the wrong situation to sub or whatnot, especially when you're got a quarterback with specific strengths, uh, and switching to a quarterback with different strengths and other weaknesses.
Yep.
There's at some point the subbing that Syracuse likes to do needs to be in the line of like what you think about in the quarterback, which is, hey, you've got guys out there that need to build chemistry with Ricky, so you might as well keep them out there instead of subbing based on situational rotations that you like.
And that's, I don't know if that segues into, it kind of does, segues into what, I guess looking at the bigger picture. I don't know if you've seen a lot of the discourse, especially during the game. I know there seemed to be a ton of people that were, immediately calling for Ricky's head, which to me seems stupid, but I see things slightly differently than most people, it seems, when it comes to football. The why people immediately want to see Luke Carney, I don't know. I'm sure at some point, sure, I would love to see what the guy can do. But what are you going to get from, for one, throwing a QB out there who hasn't ran with these wideouts at all? And yes, he probably has a grasp of the playbook, but for the most part has been running scout team into a game in a situation where you're trying to grow this other quarterback. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like Fran doesn't seem like someone who's going to play hot potato with his quarterback. He's going to stick with his guy and ride with Ricky. And no matter how many times you think that might not be the right idea, that's what's going to happen. So you may as well come along for the ride.
Anyone who wants to see a quarterback change, honestly, should remember what happened in the Colgate game. Collins did not look good against Colgate.
Yeah.
And, immediately through that pick, what happened? Steve goes out there and immediately leads the drive down.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to what just the general philosophy of Fran has been. Again, remember, McCord throws 5 picks against Pitt. He's not coming out. Collins, struggles against Duke and now struggles against SMU. Doesn't come out. Steve struggles mightily against UConn and doesn't come out and wins that game.
Yeah.
You need Fran isn't going to take out a guy, especially a guy who needs time developing chemistry with his team. To throw Corny out there again would have been essential. I would know it would be very, very close to malpractice. Again, just based on what Collins looks like against Colgate. Syracuse clearly shows that they spend so much time developing chemistry between these starters, just in general. And so, you got to remember, this is his second week working with these guys full time.
Right.
You cannot call what he did in spring and the first half of training camp adequate chemistry building work to be at the level that you need to be at as a Division I FBS Power 4 quarterback.
Yeah, I think that you hit the nail on the head, like Christian. And at the end of the day, Collins is going to be the guy. I do not think, even though I know there's some calls for other quarterbacks to play, I think that based off of the things that you kind of mentioned and just the limited action we've seen of those other quarterbacks, Fran is not changing the system for anyone. And in order to play anybody other than Ricky Collins, we would need to fundamentally change the system, and that's just not going to happen. One of the things that I thought was really interesting, I was listening to the Split Zone Duo podcast, which is Richard Johnson of CBS and Alex Kirshner, formerly of SB Nation. They were talking about just generally Syracuse's, what is their identity under Fran? And what they were saying was, if you look at the per play numbers and you look at the number of plays we're running and you look at just watch the games, Syracuse right now under Fran is about high intensity, high volume. It's there's a level of physicality to it. And obviously we are not seeing the highest level execution there. But that level of physicality is obviously, we see some freshmen stepping up this year. That is not something that is conducive to a true freshman or a sophomore who has not really played any game experience before, to be completely frank. I think Ricky Collins is seeing some of that, and I think that when we talk about why is he so inconsistent, the hardest thing to do is to do the same thing over and over again at high speeds, at high intensity. And I think that that's where this repetition comes from in practice. That's where the chemistry comes from and why it's so important. You can't run the team the way that Fran wants to. And look, I'm going to be honest. We saw with Dino. Dino tried to do that in his own way. And when it didn't work, he tried to regress all the way to the other side of the pendulum. And that didn't really work all that well either. They're seeing it with UNC. UNC is running 55 plays per game. That is the lowest in all of Power 4 football right now. Syracuse is running something.
I could have told you that
close.
If Bill was coaching a team.
Right, and part of it, it's just not the way that modern college football really works. If you're trying to go out and win games, if you're trying not to lose games, that's how you play it. And we saw that at Syracuse, that we just don't have that ability to lean on teams that way. So yeah, I think Ricky Collins needs to be the quarterback coming out of the bye week. I think what needs to change and what needs to happen here is that there does need to be a moment with him where, look, I don't know if you got to go play golf. I don't know if you got to go fishing. I don't know what you got to go do to clear your head and come at this fresh. But it's really clear that there needs to be something happening between him, the coaching staff, offensive line, where everybody is just resetting this and attacking this brand new and trying to simplify the entire process down a bit.
Let's put this another way right now. Has a quarterback in college right now actually looked world-beating, like a good quarterback? Remember how this year was supposed to be the year of the quarterback, especially in the draft? And you've got guys like Derek Nussmeier and Arch Manning and Drew Aller, who don't look nearly as good as projected. This is not a good year for quarterbacks. Darian Mensah is the second leading passer in the nation. And was he consistent against Syracuse? Yes. I wouldn't say he was the reason why he won that game.
The best quarter.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say, the best quarterback right now is playing for Indiana, Fernando Mendoza, who was at Cal last year and looked deer in headlights against Syracuse. But I think a lot of that is like it's the offensive system. It's also offensive line, but it's also, I think Mendoza, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think Mendoza is a junior or redshirt junior or something like that. Like he's been around for a minute.
Yeah, no, Mendoza
and,
is
and most importantly, been starting at a minute.
Yeah, I believe he's redshirt junior, or either that or just normal junior in general. But like he's got that experience. And Jelly is still the 34th leading passer in the nation in terms of yards. Like,
Insane.
and yes, we're a lot of those against UConn and Colgate. Yes, but you've got to do something in order to get there. And like he was playing well against Clemson as well.
Right.
So like this hasn't necessarily been a world-beating year for quarterbacks. And so and just in general, it feels like times are evolving where defenses are getting used to playing against high quality quarterbacks in general. So you have to vary something up. And if you're going to expect Ricky Collins to immediately be a Garrett Schrader or a Stephen Jelly or a Tommy DeVito, this dude hasn't played significant college football since high school. He's been the third stringer at LSU for 2 years. And Jelly at least got significant enough time to stay fresh at Notre Dame and had the experience to back it up, and not just in the CFP, but also starting a bowl game against a pretty good team. So, like, this is his second game in 3 years as a starter.
And going back to like the point that we kind of started this entire conversation off with the point that Christian brought up with all the good defensive fronts that we're playing this year, something that I completely forgot about that I was listening to a different podcast talk about. This is the first year where coaches are in the helmets on both sides of the ball, which means that this is the first time that you as a coaching staff can communicate in drive adjustments to your captains on both sides of the ball. And what I think we're seeing happen at the college level is that these quarterbacks are so used to running very systemic things. Defenses are adjusting, and quarterbacks aren't used to seeing that level of quick defensive adjustment come through. And it's just a really big change from the height. Like, you know, again, we're talking about these guys that were previously playing high school football where you don't have this technology everywhere. This is a massive change for a lot of these guys that right now is benefiting the defensive side of the ball far more than it is the offensive side of the ball. And that's where a guy like, I think, Angeli, who is incredibly comfortable taking the check down, incredibly comfortable moving to the fourth read and saying, you know what, this play's dead, give me 3 yards and we'll live to fight another day. Like, that mentality is going to look a lot better than Ricky Collins, who is going to say, all right, my number one receiver is running a go route over the middle in between double coverage with a sitting linebacker underneath there. I'm still going to try to throw the ball in there anyway and see what happens. Like, I think that's the two different types of quarterbacks we have here. And the problem is that if Ricky Collins was good enough to make that type of throw every time, he would still be at LSU. And not necessarily in the transfer portal. And again, he's young. Like, it's okay that he's not able to make those throws at that highest level.
Right.
It's just the reality that, like, Ricky Collins does not seem like he's a check down quarterback. And unfortunately, right now, I think that that's what you kind of need to be as a quarterback right now because of how good the defenses are adjusting to things in game.
Let's put it into another bit of context. Again, about what passing is nowadays. And Jelly, when he left, finishes with 1,317 yards, 1,317. Dylan Raiola is the quarterback above him. He only has 14 more passing yards. Jelly is ahead of Julian Sayin and CJ Carr in terms of passing yards on the year. And Jelly has played 3.5 games. You gotta take it easy on Ricky. Like, he needs
Time,
he needs
reps,
time.
experience, chemistry.
And Fran has shown when he gives his trust in a quarterback, they can go a long way together. This is the second week that he's given the keys to Ricky. Give it time, guys.
We've talked about 50 minutes on the offense and Ricky Collins. Can we at least do a little quick dive on what in God's name is happening on defense?
So Andy and I talked about this a bit because I did get play-by-play from our friend of the program, Mike Ostrowski, on my way drive to my other event that I had to do that day. And what we had complained about was that Syracuse could not defend the screen for their life. And Andy figured out the reason why.
Yeah, it seemed like defensively, the defense and like, look, this is a fair reaction. Last couple weeks, teams have been able to run up the middle way too easily on Syracuse and not just like get 4 or 5 yards, but get, big plays. We saw that in the Duke game. I thought that, and Christian kind of backed me up with his grade here. I thought Anthony Delorier had an amazing game. Like he had some amazing physical plays where he was one-arm tackling guys, like he was getting chipped and still getting hands on the runners inside. He never left the tackle box. He was never in a position to chase somebody down outside. And I think that this was a situation where early on, Syracuse was stopping at SMU, like on the first couple of drives. And I think that they picked up pretty quickly. Syracuse was going to say, you're going to need to try to beat us out wide because we're not going to let you have anything up the middle. The problem was that SMU very quickly was able to get guys moving, a lot of CFL-esque kind of things where they were putting guys in motion and then immediately swinging it out to them. Okay. And so they had a head of steam. And again, when your entire focus is on stopping the middle, you're starting flat-footed, they're starting on the back foot, and then all of a sudden, things can kind of spiral out of there. But defensively, I thought that, the secondary actually looked pretty good, all things considered. On anything that was, more than 5-10 yards downfield, it was just everything, again, like story of the season and on this podcast. The linebackers in pass coverage were just not it. And it really showed on a lot of those screens, tunnel screens, slants, anything where the linebackers needed to be involved was just not executed at a high level.
So, SMU had 294 receiving yards. That's 9.8 per catch that they had. According to PFF, SMU's yards after catch, 193. 6.4 per catch.
Yeah.
And this was also our lowest rated tackling game of the year, which is a low bar to hit.
Our expectations for you were low, but my
Holy
God.
Fuck.
You went way under them.
That's one of my favorite memes of all time.
The other thing, though, is like, I don't know. We're seeing a bit of a trend, and in my head, I can't tell if it's because of the situation of some of these games, but we've had multiple games where Robinson has been very good at adjusting, but that his initial game plan has been off. That we give up points early, and then we adjust and shut things down. Like, we only gave up 7 second-half points. And
it was all the screens in the second quarter.
Yeah, but like I don't know. I mean, we only gave up. What did we give up in the second half against Duke?
Not a whole lot.
Right. Like it seems like our defense is very good at adjusting, but we're not. Like something's missing in the game plan prep, whatever's going on, and I don't know what that is, and I don't know how you fix that. But it's just something I've noticed over the past couple of weeks of like, we're not coming out strong, but we're adjusting well. And
So
we saw that last year with Robinson too.
Yeah, Duke scores 2 touchdowns in that second half.
Right. But compared to the first half, that was nothing.
They scored 3 touchdowns and a field goal.
Right. And I feel like ran all over us.
Yeah.
However they wanted to.
Syracuse had 14 missed tackles.
I think that like that was what I was gonna say. Like so much of SMU's game plan was just like, look, we don't need to get guys in space. We just need to get guys with a head start, and we feel confident that they're gonna get a pretty good chunk of change here.
Jeez, why didn't we do that?
Which
with
again,
John
I think was
Tucker
in
2020
response
and
to
2021.
Nobody knows.
Yeah, it was and the frustrating part of it was that again, like early on, SMU wanted to run a lot of inside zones. They wanted to run a lot of dive plays, option reads where the read was inside, and Syracuse did a great job of shutting that down. Like that was great. The problem was that SMU very quickly went, cool, neat, let's try something else. And Syracuse went, oh, you're not going to try this anymore? Crap, oh crap. Right. And that is when they started, and that's when SMU started scoring at will, which is, again, goes back to this Robinson thing of like, we know he can adjust, but why aren't the adjustments happening when the offense is also adjusting? Why are we so And again, like, part of the nature of defense is to be reactive, but there is definitely something missing there, some kind of link missing. The good news is that we get Pitt we have a bye week this week. We get Pitt next for the Orange Central homecoming game. Pitt's just started a true freshman 4-star quarterback who threw for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns.
That was BC, though.
Now, yes, did he do that against a bad team? Absolutely. Honestly, I don't know if Pitt plays this weekend. I haven't looked ahead at the slate yet, but if Pitt does play, be watching a lot there, because I think it's really clear that they're going to go with the kid instead of going with Eli Holstein. No idea if the kid is actually any good or not. We know that BC is bad.
Pitt does play next weekend. It is quite unfortunate
Who do they
for
play?
them. They are going to Tallahassee.
Why not?
And Florida State is not
Please
happy
beat up
right
on them,
now.
FSU.
Florida State is very much so not happy
No.
with themselves right now.
Why? Everything seems.
I'm going to tell you right now. We're not. I know that we never verge into sports betting, and nor should we. But I'm gonna let you know right now. There's gonna be a lot of people who think that they're really smart taking Pitt against the spread against Florida State, thinking that Florida State is actually bad and Pitt might be good with their freshman quarterback. And I am just gonna say, don't do that. Don't do that. That just seems like a bad idea.
Nothing
So,
about going either way with that
the-
seems like a good idea, Andy. Just stay away from that game.
So, based
Yeah, exactly.
based on quick
Yeah,
research,
exactly.
the line for Pitt Florida State is FSU anywhere between 8.5 and 9.5, going towards FSU.
Sure.
I would take FSU again, not gambling show, but I think FSU is a much better team and a much angrier team.
Yeah, that game.
Well, this was not a fun week to be a Syracuse football fan.
No, not really.
No.
Now it's the hardest opponent of them all. Bye week.
Well, historically, that may have been our hardest game to play all year.
I'm intrigued by the idea of Fran after a bye week. Like, I know that the Dino after a bye week became a thing. I saw something before that Fran Syracuse didn't lose back-to-back games last year, which is something that I didn't really internalize.
Mhm.
But he's
this
lost
is his
back-to-back
first-
games, and now he gets a bye week.
This is Fran's first time losing back-to-back games as a coach in any capacity since his time at Rutgers in 21.
I am every time that there's a Fran Brown stat that comes out, I am just more and more amazed. I love
Yeah.
him. I don't know how else you could respond to that other than like with pure love and admiration.
So there you go.
Yeah, let's see what happens here. Anything else that happened this week in Syracuse sports that we should be not sad about?
No.
Cool. Neat. Again, bye week you. Might have something cooking up on the show. Christian and Steve got a random email that I sent out that I need to follow up on, but might result in a fun show for the bye week. Waiting to see if that materializes. But otherwise, thank you everybody for listening to this week's sad edition of the Disloyal Idiots podcast. I promise Syracuse will win again and we'll be able to talk about happy things. But until then, please make sure that you like and subscribe. Help us trick the AI into expanding the Ottoman Empire. Oh, Steve, yeah, what?
I was just saying we'll win again someday. Whenever that is.
Yeah, I thought that there was a win that came through. Yeah. Sister site, newsmagician.com. Continue to help and support reading our stuff over there. Everybody's doing a great job. There's some new writers on board. Seems like this is going to be a fantastic season for News Magician as well. And make sure that you follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/disloyalidiots. We go every week-ish at 8-ish to watch these shows. You get to watch the chaos happen in live real time, which is always fun, and watch my internet and my iPad continue to crap out every time we do this, which I promise I will get new technology soon, one day soon. And
TM.
TM. Yeah, we'll see. And then thanks again to our friends at Fans First Sports Network. As always, love being here, love being part of the network. We really appreciate the support across the board there. It hurts to say sometimes, but we need to say it. Syracuse will win again. Go Orange.
Go Orange.